Hello, everybody. This is Empowering Democracy, and I'm your host, Joe Firestone. And we have something special for you today. Our topic is Healing Us and the Healing Us network in depth. And we have joining us today the filmmakers of Healing Us, specifically Kenny Ballantyne and Maddie Purvis, and executive producer Joe Jarvis, and I should say, the associate producer Laura Fielding, and one of the featured participants, Scott Denoye. And we expect that Sukuru Fours will be joining us fairly soon, too. But let's get started right now.
All right.
If it's okay with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
When you started the journey of doing this very fine documentary, very artistic documentary, and very effective documentary, what did you have in mind to begin with?
Not at all what we ended up with, honestly. But that's in a good way. Um, the, healthcare has always been on the forefront of my mind because as an independent filmmaker who's trying to raise a family, it's always been difficulty on insurance, off insurance, worried about every little runny nose and twisted ankle. So I knew I'd be interested in telling some kind of story related to healthcare if the right one came up. And then on one occasion, I was listening to a podcast. It was Ryan Knight's podcast, and he had a special guest on, Laura Fielding. And she told this story about the Red Berets for Medicare for All. And I learned that there was this group of craftivists up in Washington who were creating these Red Berets to be a symbol of solidarity, to unite us all in our fight for universal health care. And I thought, hey, that's cute. I love that story. I want to tell that story. And so I messaged her, assuming that someone else has probably already done this because it's such a good story. And she was delighted to hear that I thought someone else would have made this movie already. And I was delighted to hear that it hadn't been done. And so we made arrangements to get together. I would come up there. She organized an action while I was up there, and we did some filming together for what I assumed would probably be like a short film about the Red Berets. And Laura, on the other hand, has bigger visions. And she is such a fierce organizer, activist. I call her producer for that reason. And she reached out to her friend Scott Denoyers and said, you got to get out here and tell your story. And connected me to Joe Jarvis and said, you got to have this guy in your film. He's a conservative who's for single payer health care. And really, because of the connections that Laura went out of her way to make for me, the scope grew and grew and grew to something that really tells the story of American healthcare from coast to coast and the enemies of progress that are the insurance companies. So yeah, it turned into something completely different. I am so proud of what it turned into. Maddie Purvis is a poet of an editor, and anyone who knows documentary knows that an editor is as much a director of the film as the director is. This is has her stamp and fingerprints all over. It's her film as much as mine. And that's where we are today. We have a beautiful finished movie, and it's starting to get out there and touch some hearts, and we're really excited to premiere it next month or 2 weeks from now. Yeah.
How did you decide to on the various topics that you were going to include? in the film.
Sure.
How did you make the cut? Because I'm sure there were some topics that you considered, but that were not included.
Sure. I mean, there's a whole lot more that could be in the movie that's not in the movie. And we saw that difficulty pretty early on, and we knew we didn't want to make a 10-hour film. So what we tried to do was to let that develop organically, where we knew we had personal stories we wanted to tell, like Scott's, the Red Berets, Joe Jarvis, Amy Vilela. And then the question was, what context do people need to know to understand all the ramifications of these stories? So what's the bare bones that we have to insert in between here to make all this congeal and make some sense to someone who might not know any of this? It might be brand new to the movement, right? So that's where that kind of came from. I mean, we'll get more into the Healing Us Network a little later, but a big reason why we are wanting to build something more beyond the movie is to allow for a space to fill in the gaps of all the things we can't have in our 75-minute movie. And we have a big open invitation to anyone who says, wait a minute, there's a piece I have that's not in your movie. Come and let's put it on the Healing Us Network, and let's make this literally a movement for all of us.
I think that's a wonderful way to look at it. When you speak of placing it in context, and that it was that idea that drove you to include the topics that you included, there's still a trick to this. In other words, from the standpoint of a viewer, which I am, what I got from the film was a very comprehensive look at what we're lacking, okay, in healthcare. Very comprehensive look at the problems, okay, in our healthcare. The personal stories, of course, had great impact, and they're very important, for getting to people. You cannot unlisten to Scott's story once you've heard it. You cannot forget it. And the same thing with Amy Vilela, okay, as well. Okay, Wendell Potter's story in its own way is also very moving, and various other stories that were in the film, okay, are all moving. So the personal impact, okay, is there for people, but somehow you manage to interweave important statistics and important context in terms of comparison with other countries, okay, and what they do. Okay, you manage to interweave the way the insurance companies operate and what the impact is on the American people. You manage to paint such a comprehensive picture that, as I characterized it earlier, it felt to me like 400 blows against the insurance industry. Okay, but Dr. Jarvis was delivering many of those blows in his part of the film. Okay, I love the way that he interleaved the biblical aspect into the film, which has got to appeal to many, many people. Okay, I guess I'd like a little more of your insight in terms of how you did all that.
Okay.
And so that's the question, because that was very, very
Marty
important.
and I locked ourselves into an office for several months and came out with this movie. You know, it's the incorporating of the information isn't the hard part, right? Because all that data and info is out there at our fingertips if you just want to look for it. To us, the challenge was, how do we make it interesting or beautiful or fun or sad? Our language is emotion. And so when we go from a story like Amy Vilela's, and then have to, which is seriously just a punch in your gut.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we've had audiences audibly crying. How do you then transition to like a bar graph? Right now, we're going to show you a bar graph and talk about statistics. That's not a really natural transition to make. So
No, it's not.
where we had the most fun with the movie, the most fulfillment with the movie, was figuring out how to sort of make a flow where we go from something really, really heavy to something lighter, maybe even give the audience a chance to chuckle every now and then come back in with something heavy again. We have several segments we think of as kind of a reprieve, a chance to give the audience a breath. And when you're in that breath space, that's a better time to absorb some of like the more data driven stuff, information, as opposed to like right off of something deeply emotional and disturbing. So that's kind of the process. It's I used the word poetry earlier. It's kind of like taking all these pieces and trying to make a mosaic or a
Yes.
poem where all the pieces come together and it feels nice, and hopefully you get the whole spectrum of human emotion from beginning to end.
The one thing I want to jump in and say that we had the fulfillment part of editing the film really is true in the editing process. But the one thing that, in terms of how to make it all work together, the placement of every scene and each story and the data that goes with the stories was very, very conscious, and was one of the first things that we decided in terms of what stays and what doesn't. We knew at some point we decided we wanted to open the film with a personal story. And then it was, okay, which story, and which story, because of what reasons, and how does that story end? And how does that leave an opening for the next thing? And what elements of the healthcare system are included in that? Is it insurance? Is it political? Is it anything like that? And the placement of each things, we were hoping to go on a journey with the audience, that the audience would follow along and it would feel like a 5-minute video as opposed to a 75-minute film. I think that we're successful because the stories carry the narrative, and the data supplements the stories and adds weight to the personal stories. Because at the end of the day, the reason why we should care about healthcare is our own individual stories. Every single person has a healthcare story, and that's how we connect is through that human element. And the other stuff, the data of what other nations spend, insurance companies being a part of it, and the heads of the presidents and the amount of money they've each taken from the healthcare lobby, that was all supplemental to add to the weight of the story of Americans and their lack of health and lack of care. And that, I don't know. That's
well said.
What I'd like to ask you, Maddie, was it didn't seem to me like a 5-minute film, but it seemed to me to be too short. I found myself wanting 15 to 20 to a half hour more.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. I did not want the film to end.
We've got more we could give you. We've got hundreds of hours.
What I did find very effective was when you came to the climax of the film, to building up to the climax. Okay, I felt a rhythm to that, and I knew it was coming to a climax, and there was tension about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that had really great impact. Okay, at the end, that it was very, very skillfully done.
Thank you for saying that. We want audiences to come away thinking, hot damn.
Yeah, I found the film
involved. That's exactly.
And that's
what
the
want.
more. That's the more we want people to want is add your part. The next 15 minutes is you add your story next, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a heavy movie, and I think we come out of it talking a lot about the really hard parts of it. But that ending is meant to is to see the hope. Is to really see the hope, and that this is possible, and that you have a voice, no matter if you are a political activist or a doctor or a knitter.
I think you did that very successfully.
Thanks.
Okay. I was also very pleased with the section on through the states as well. I was kind of waiting for that.
Yeah.
And I was very happy to see it when you got there. Um, as the executive producer, what was your experience like, okay, in making the film and participating in the film, Joe?
Let me preface that my response by saying that I have hoped and prayed for a film like this for many, many years. I've been a healthcare activist for more than 30 years now. I've given all of those data-driven talks, dozens and dozens of them. I've written those op-ed pieces. I've even published books about it. I've started nonprofit organizations. I've run for office, all trying to get people to focus on this, which I consider to be the central domestic issue in the United States, and one that is a key to solving so many other issues. But I knew many years ago that one of the reasons that I seemed to fall short always is the stories weren't getting through to people. And I could see that the way to do that was film. And I actually tried to organize a film effort in the mid 2000 to 2010 timeframe and just failed at it. So when Kenny called me and said that somebody in Washington, and I don't think he actually said Laura's name, had told him that, and he was doing a film, and he should come and interview me. Could he do that? I was ready for that sort of experience. I wanted to participate in a film about health system reform because I know the stories are going to be so meaningful to people. What I wasn't prepared for was the connection I had with Kenny the first time he came here to my house. We're in my house to participate with you this afternoon. He came here to interview me and film me. We had, just a wonderful personal connection, very warm. It was a great experience. And so I used the opportunity to start inquiring with him about how the film was going to progress after. I mean, he's got me in a can now. What's going to happen next? And his response was measured, and he was optimistic, but he was realistic enough to also say that funds needed to be raised, and it was going to take a long time. And I'm old enough now that I see a horizon coming at me that I don't want to pass without seeing something happen in healthcare. And I didn't want this project to just languish. So I started making arrangements to figure out how I could help. And that ended up with me and being the executive producer and helping with raising some of the money for the film, which I frankly was grateful to do. And the reason for that was because that's how I got to know Laura. That's how I got to know Scott. And that's how I've got to know so many other people in the realm who I otherwise would not have connected with. It's really enriched my experience as an activist to know people from across the country like this. It's transformed how I think about the movement in a way that it helps me grow personally, but it helps me be very hopeful that this is the moment that I've actually been working towards for all these years, these decades. That's a short thumbnail version of my experience over the last couple of years working on this film. I just have been so grateful to see it, and I'm so grateful for what it looks like now, and I think the power that it's going to bring to this conversation across the country.
Yes, I have very high hopes for it also. Okay, I note that you've written also 2 books, the Purple World and For the Hurt of My People, which comes out of a quotation from Jeremiah, right?
That's right. For the hurt of my people, Jeremiah said. He had great concerns. You have to get the context for Jeremiah. He's the prophet just before the Babylonian Empire destroys Jerusalem.
Yes.
He is the voice in the wilderness for 40 years, kind of like me for 40 years. He's the voice in the wilderness
Healthcare prophet.
Yeah. Who's saying to the people of Jerusalem, shape up. You don't have the protection of God if you're not taking care of your people. And so this is one of the moments when he's trying to be direct with them. He's saying, is there no balm in Gilead? Well, Gilead actually was a place there, and there was a balm that was well known. Everybody knew the answer to that question. Is there no physician there, he asks? Well, of course, there were physicians who knew how to apply that balm. Well, then why are my people still hurting? Why have you not restored the health of my people? He's clearly laying on the elites, the governing elites. They must pay attention to this problem, or the society is too weak to support itself. It's disappearing if it doesn't take care of its weakest people, of the sick, of the injured. That's why that quote is the title of that book. We need to start paying attention to this.
That is a beautiful analogy to the United States at present, because there's all the balm in Gilead that we could possibly ask for, and it cannot get to people. It cannot get to people because we don't have a Medicare for All program, and because the insurance industry isn't insuring people. It's placing barriers to people getting health care. It's rationing health care. It's restricting health care. It's killing people all the time.
We have monetized the balm of Gilead.
We have monetized the balm
and
of Gilead.
We're taking it, we're using it for profit instead of as what it's intended to help people. You're exactly right. That's the flaw.
Yes. That's a real sorrow also.
For me, it's everything. I went into the profession of medicine with all the intentions of serving people. Like I remember being served by doctors when I was young and had an occasional problem, a health problem here and there. And I have not been able to do it. I came to the point in my career where I realized that business people were telling me how to practice medicine. At the finest facility for healthcare for lung diseases in the world, where I was on the faculty, I had a patient who I knew how to help, but he hadn't been approved for inpatient therapy. He'd only been approved for outpatient, and he needed to be inpatient to get the care that I knew he needed. And I ordered that he be admitted to the hospital, and I told my nurse what to do and walked away for a few minutes to run another chore, came back and found him blue and panting in the waiting room, not admitted. Why? Because an insurance approval hadn't occurred and the business office wouldn't let him into the hospital. I just was shocked. But that experience every physician across this country is having every day. Every day.
Okay, I'd like to turn to you, Scott, now. What was it like to be a part of this film? And what was it like to be a key participant in so many of the scenes?
Well, like I've told many people, this is the one film I wish I never was in. Not that I don't want to be part of this movement, but like I said from the beginning, I'm very self-conscious about my appearance with my dental situation. I have never been self-confident with my whole life. That's why I moved to the country. I didn't want people to see me. I didn't want to be around people. The last thing I want to do is be seen nationally all the time, screaming into a bullhorn when I was never confident in myself to begin with. But the insurance industry killed my kid because he was late paying $20. I promise I'm going to do something. And if it goes against every fiber in my body, against every grain in me, I'm going to fulfill that promise. You know? But I'm very proud to be part of this. I'm proud that Kenny gave me this segue to have my voice heard. Whether I want it to be heard or not, it needs to be heard. And thank you, Kenny, for allowing that.
You should be very proud of your participation in the film. Your scenes, when you spoke, the way you express things, were continuously powerful. I know that was part of your activism and participating in the events, but there was an eloquence to the way you express things, and an authenticity, and a sincerity. And of course, people need to hear your narrative. Okay. And I know you give them your narrative all the time. I know that it's painful for you, okay, and for Anna. But Scott, I really have to thank you for it.
I'd like to add to that, Scott. It's been such a privilege to know you and to include your story. Healing Us isn't healing us without Scott Desnoyers, not by a long shot. And when Laura arranged for you to be in Washington when I came up to shoot, I knew very little about your story. I didn't know what I was getting into, other than that there had been a tragedy. And we shot that interview, and I had to go for a walk. Like I've never ever shot anything that powerful in my whole career, and I immediately felt the a weight of responsibility that this film just became something very, very different than I thought it was going to be. And it's going to be way more important than I could have imagined. And that's because of your story. And having watched many, many people see the film now and gotten feedback from so many of them, I can say you have absolutely nothing to be self-conscious about, because you are respected. You are respected by everyone who watches the movie, and in a big way.
Okay, and I have to add that you're not only in the movie, but of course, you're one of the people leading the charge.
Not yet.
Right,
You're
past
everywhere.
You're
You're everywhere we turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that
I
effort-
wish I
that
wasn't.
effort is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, wouldn't wish anybody else to have a worse story to take the flag from me. So, here we are, right?
Yes, indeed. Here we are. Okay, and I also want to note that Dr. Joe is leading, an effort, in Utah to get single payer passed there. I'm not mistaken in that, am I?
No, we have started a nonprofit organization called Common Sense Healthcare for Utah. It's a 501c4, so an organization that is nonprofit, but not charitable in the sense that people get a tax deduction, because we have a political purpose. Our political purpose, we exist to get a single payer ballot initiative before the voters of Utah. We've targeted the year 2026. We are right now in the process of raising the funds to hire the consultants we need to write the bill. We started actually by asking the attorney who wrote the whole Washington bill for her insights into it. And we've had sessions with people all across the country. But now we're actually needing to hire an economist, the same one that whole Washington hired, Gerald Friedman from Massachusetts. And we need to hire some attorneys. So that's what we're doing right now. By the end of this year, once we have the policy all prepared that fits into the Utah statutes, then we will begin raising money to try to get the signature process completed in the following year or so that we can qualify for the ballot in 2026. We anticipate a very strong anti-campaign once we qualify for the ballot. So we'll need to raise money all along in order to make jump over all those hurdles. I've got about a dozen doctors who have joined me in this, and maybe a half a dozen leading business people in the state of Utah. It's quite an enterprise. As I said, I've been actively pursuing health system reform for 35 years, and 25 of those 35 years have been here in Utah. This is the first time I feel like I see progress, that we're actually moving something forward. We're gaining some attention. We had a press conference in February at the state capitol to announce our kickoff, and we took the show across the state. We'll be doing that and much more over the next few weeks. Tonight, Kenny and Maddie are here because tonight I've been invited to speak at the Cathedral of the Madeleine in downtown Salt Lake City, the seat of the diocese for the Catholic Church in Utah.
Oh, wow.
We have presentations like that happening more and more frequently. Members of the board of Common Sense are likewise being asked to speak in their local areas. So it's gaining some momentum. Keep your eye on us. I think we're going to actually succeed at getting on the ballot, and it'll be a fight.
So the response to the effort so far has been very encouraging from people.
Yes, I have been telephoning as part of the fundraising process, all of the physicians that were my colleagues, my personal friends, people who donated to my political campaigns, and every single one of them has a very positive response. Of course, they've known me as a healthcare activist all these years, so they know it's not a surprise that I'd be doing that, but they've been opening their wallets and helping to fund it. We're just at the very start, lots of hurdles left to climb over, but I'm very optimistic about it.
Okay. Is there any response from the larger public yet?
I have seen, I've been able to get op-eds placed in all of the various larger newspapers in the state, and we've had some press coverage. So yeah, that kind of response. We have not done a significant amount of polling. We did a preliminary kind of off the cuff sort of thing and had remarkable responses. 97% of Utahns agree that healthcare is way too expensive. 87% agree that the state of Utah could actually make it affordable for every family. For instance, those were two responses. So yeah, I mean, people all know that there's something wrong with our healthcare system. They know that. Innately, they know that. And they know we're not doing the right thing for people. That's all I can say right now. Hopefully with some more fundraising, we'll get a real poll that will really kind of delve deep, and I'll be able to say by political, inclination, by rural versus urban, everything. I'll be able to figure out how to message this so that we get more and more people involved.
When you talk to people at this point, are you getting any of the knee-jerk kind of ideological response? What I mean is, the normal, oh, this is socialism.
So on social media particularly, we now have a web presence. The Common Sense Healthcare has a website, and we also have social media presence on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and that's where we're getting pushback from people. Surprisingly, not nearly as much as I would have anticipated. When I speak, so far I've been invited to audiences who tend to already be with us. For instance, a couple of weeks ago, I gave a half-hour presentation at the Utah Public Health Association. There wasn't any pushback about socialism, but of course you wouldn't expect it in that audience.
Yes.
And I don't expect to hear it tonight at the Catholic Church either. So I will hear it when I start going to chambers of commerce, which I expect to do in the near future. And because I've done this, I've been on this speaker circuit. I haven't yet to go to a place that I haven't already spoken at sometime in 25, 30 years of doing this. I've been everywhere. I've talked to a lot of people already. But the difference is we're 10 years past the passage of the Affordable Care Act, and it's still not affordable. And it's not caring. And everybody knows it. And so they can't kid themselves anymore about it. I spoke to a community group just after Obama was first elected, and I said, he's already cut his deal with the insurance companies, and it's not going to be any different. It won't be affordable. I told them everything that I knew would be the case. And they told me I needed to knock it off because you need to give the guy a chance. Well, we gave him his chance, right? We gave all of that his chance. Everybody knows it. The oxygen went out of the room during the Obama administration. It went out of the room of healthcare reform discussion. It's back in the room now. Everybody is ready to talk about it. Now, they're not all ready to immediately agree, but a surprising percentage are. The people in the middle, the moderates, the people we need, they are. They know.
That is really great news because, of course, I knew in 2010, when the Affordable Care Act was passed, that all the oxygen was going to go out of the room. Okay, everybody was going to basically have the attitude, well, wait and see how the ACA works, and that was going to kill the Medicare for All movement for a long time. And I was part of the Medicare for All movement in 2008 and 2009. I blogged, like crazy about it. But of course, I knew early in the Obama administration that he had, taken it off the table. That he had other plans,
Mhm.
and that he basically had a neoliberal attitude towards it. So that was actually pretty hopeless when he got the Affordable Care Act passed. I think paradoxically, it would have been better for the Medicare for All movement if the Affordable Care Act had never passed. But that's a story for another day, and is not relevant here. Okay, Laura, what was it like for you to participate in the film?
My language must be the language of emotion as well, because I've been finding myself really moved to tears listening to everyone sharing and answering so far, and I guess really feeling the emotion of now of it's finally
It's finally here.
here. It's finally here, and that there's a lot around that. So let me see if I can just try to find some linear or eloquent words. It was a lot of things. It was no one particular thing, but my experience, as soon as I realized that Kenny's message was for real, like it took me a couple of times. And actually the first person that I reached out to was Lisa Theobald to say, I just got this message from a documentarian, like saying, has anybody done a movie on the Red Berets movement? And I think this is a big deal. And she was like, it's a huge deal, Laura. And I said, well, do you think it's real? I think it's real, so there was just definitely this, because we had really been just for years on Twitter in particular, trying to build this creative movement through imagery. There was a lot of real local activism going on, and Kenny mentioned, craftivists in Washington, which is true. We were a few core craftivists in Washington, but also people in the really early days of whole Washington. I'm not going to tell that whole story here. There's tons of many people probably already know it. But the point is that when Kenny reached out to say, this sounds like a really amazing creative idea. And I maybe could have conveyed, it didn't really occur to me. I guess these are the things that happened in the mind versus what you actually verbalize or tell someone, is I have a very specific and big idea about the Medicare for All revolution. Like, I know all kinds of people and exactly who I'm going to put you in touch with. And the list is, long. So in that first weekend, yes, it was incredibly important because I didn't know, how big the process would be or how much opportunity that we would get with Kenny. What I knew is that we had a weekend scheduled. So I really set about reaching out to Scott and Lisa and asking them to travel, and reaching out immediately to Georgia Davenport, who's the founder of Whole Washington, to say, we got a documentary filmmaker coming up to Washington State. What can we organize? So in my vision for that weekend, it started to take shape that we needed some actions. So, Whole Washington had always it had been largely ballot initiatives, direct democracy, because that's how, we knew that it was possible to move things. It creates a lot of energy. You get out and talk face to face with people, and it puts it in the hands of the people who are needing healthcare, rather than represent people that are meant to represent us, who are deep in the pockets of these lobbies that we talk about in the film. And so, but the core volunteers of Whole Washington had always done everything within our volunteer power to bridge that, to do what we could also for the national movement. So Whole Washington has always been about local community engagement through ballot initiatives, but also through organizing barnstorms for Representative Jayapal's bill at like 11 locations around the state. So this was like definitely an easy ask, like it was a no-brainer. Definitely, Georgia was like, yeah, let's organize a rally outside of Derek Kilmer's office. We need Representative Kilmer, to co-sponsor Rep. Jayapal's bill. We'll send it all out through the Whole Washington database. We'll reach out to all of our networks. So I just loved that first rally that we did, and Scott was present for that and spoke. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Laura, I just wanted, Scott is limited, okay, in the time that he can be here.
Yeah.
And I wanted, first of all, to thank him for coming.
Yes.
And to giving us his perspective on the film. I also wanted to give him a chance to say goodbye.
Thank you so much, Ed. Look at that. I can actually smile once in a while, too. Yeah, thank you guys for having me on, Joe. This movie is just amazing. Kenny, Dr. Jarvis, oh my God, Laura, you guys are all amazing. And this premiere is going to be just out of this world. Hopefully everybody can join us. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
My pleasure.
See you next time.
You will indeed. Bye.
Okay, bye. Okay, Laura, please go on.
So that was that piece of all the local activists and the different organizations coming in, anyway, I could really get into that, but the rally outside of Representative Kilmer's office was really this beautiful collaboration of different groups and people that came together, and we said, wear your Whole Washington red and your red berets if you have them, and come out and join us and demand Representative Kilmer co-sponsor. And we had people, Jen and I, leaping through the intersection and people honking. It was wonderful. And two other actions that we put together, because something over the years of time of kind of knitting and others crocheting and putting this work out there, we've gotten this work out onto people's heads who are doing the actions, and that's wonderful. That's the whole purpose, quite frankly. And it's also the case that the craft itself and the purpose and the intention and the time that it takes to create these pieces of art in themselves, in the conversations that we're able to have, that piece gets lost. And so I was just, again, really grateful for another artistic medium to come along and find and to see us and recognize, wow, this is something we would like to help be seen. So I really wanted to make sure that in that first weekend, the craft itself didn't get lost. because that piece kind of disappears. You see it on people's heads, but it's not really shown to people. And it's an incredible amount of dedication, or as Fran Bauer says, a real labor of love. And so we had the filming at Fibers Etc., which is my local yarn store. And, you know, oh gosh, there's so much to go into here. Lori Jackson, who is no longer with us, but who is in the film and who just crocheted and crocheted. She passed away last year, which was quite devastating to me because she wasn't someone who was out on Twitter or very visibly seen, but would just reach out to me very routinely with, I have more red hats for you. When can we get together so you can pick these up? And, but, you know, so I let Kenny know, and they said, wow, well, interestingly, you know, well, first of all, we're so sorry for your loss, but also Lori's really got a very touching moment in this film. And so, yeah, I have to say that when I saw it for the first time, that part just really, I just started sobbing. And of course, Doug was right there to give me hugs. But, you know, she's just someone whose work is simple, you know, she's not like Michelle DeVilliers or someone that's super fancy in the craft, but whose work just, Nina Turner put on one of Lori's berets, you know, when she had a whole box of them. They're very humble. And I feel like her love like comes through in her berets that she crocheted. And so the movie is just so special to me on so many levels. I'm overjoyed that we got those moments at just with the craft of us. And there is Scott doing his pen and pencil work, and he and Lori interacting in the scene at Fibers, etc. And then separately we filmed. I didn't film anything. Kenny filmed some, you know, some children, a group of course, my son and some of his student peers crafting in the round. And again, that's just such a beautiful piece, because I very much agree that as a person that has seen the movie, that's like a reprieve, as they said, or I look at it as like another way of saying that is like it's a moment of resource, like a way for us to take a breath and have some beauty and have some hope. And those children just sort of coming in right after the gut punch of Amy sharing about her loss of Shalyn, I feel is very moving and powerful. And the third piece of that first weekend was getting as many local activists and then those that had traveled on the list. And so, yeah, emotionally, I'm thinking, you know, it must have been a lot for Kenny to hold, because it was 1.5 solid days of interviews after we had filmed the rally and both of the crafting scenes to get, you know, all these different voices.
Yeah.
What's that?
It was an interview marathon. And I think you gave me Scott first.
That's the way the schedule just.
Yeah. But after that, I'm like, how am I going to do this all day? Oh my goodness. But just adding to Laura, what you're sharing, Laura, when we started planning this first get together, we were going to start shooting. And by the way, that little crochet circle with the kids, that's literally the first thing we shot of the whole movie. So it's very dear to me. But we started talking, and Laura started spouting out ideas and people and names. It's just bigger and bigger. And she stops and goes, "Is this okay? Is this okay that I'm doing? Is this too much?" And I'm like, "No, it's okay. It's just you need a different title. You're now a producer." You know, and that's how Laura's film career began. Now she's a producer, because sometimes that term is used as like an honorary sort of thing. Thanks for your help. But a real producer goes out and finds the people and brings the pieces together and makes the production happen. And really, outside of myself, no one could claim to have done that any more than Laura. Yeah. So you get, we're going to find you some kind of special producer award for sure. You did that.
The film is a huge award, and the fact that we were able to bring the Dr. Jarvis came in and Dr. Dooley, and that we had laid some of the groundwork with Dr. Dooley and Justin Jackson, and that just made everything sort of roll out and come along really seamlessly. And Brianna Joy Gray, I'm just so grateful that all of these people agreed to be part of this film, because it's I knew
it. Susan Sarandon.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Susan Sarandon's narration was wonderful.
Yes.
Oh, she was such a pro. She gave such a emotional take to what we had written. It was like we were hearing it for the first time. But yeah, I couldn't in my wildest dreams imagined everything that ended up coming together. I could never have anticipated it. I mean, we have an NFL player. We have congressional candidates. We have people from all coast to coast. We have men and women. We have black and white. We have queer and straight. We have poor and wealthy. And that's ultimately what I wanted. I wanted a movie where every American sees themselves somehow, represented in there. And I can't say that we did that perfectly, but dang, we got pretty close, I think.
Yeah, I think you do have that kind of movie. That was certainly a big aspect of it.
Yeah.
There's something that's not being said, and I think I have to jump in and say it because I'm kind of the third party to it, unfortunately. And I think the combination of the people involved, including Dr. Jarvis, Kenny, and Laura, and eventually Scott, there's an integrity to the team behind all of this that is integral, I think, to the eventual success. I believe in the success of what we're trying to do, of getting healthcare back on the national conversation, because of the integrity at the center of this project. It's not a surprise to me that Laura thought of Joe, of someone to talk to, because Laura's integrity was touched to his. And the fact that we're all working together still speaks volumes to that. That just has to be said again, I think. And part of the reason why the film will be successful and this movement will get back on track is because of the integrity of the people behind the scenes in sticking to their guns and their morals, whether or not they're liked in the political worlds that they work really hard in. I'm using generals, but I mean these three people. So the props has to be gone to them in terms of literally being a film team, a filmmaking team with an executive producer with just morals that cannot budge. And anyway, I had to say that.
Okay, thank you for saying that, Maddie. I think that was very apropos. Okay, I wanted to get still more of the feeling, from Laura in relation to her contributions. Okay, I'm not talking about so much contributions in putting people together. Okay, I know you did that because we talked about it from time to time. And I sort of have an impression of the inner goings on there. But I was more interested in bringing out the feelings you had when you were making, when you were verbally painting various pictures of what the movement was about in the film. Sometimes those were instances where you were speaking from your home, and sometimes there were instances where you were speaking outside, such as in the San Francisco event, for example. How did you feel while you were doing those things?
I think, yeah, please don't let me lose track of either of those strands. I appreciate this question. I will start with the protest of Nancy Pelosi, right, in her district,
Yes.
and how that was. I felt, still feel at the time though, really, really energized and really appreciative of Sukuru and Eric, who primarily reached out to us to invite us to come be part of that. And yeah, I don't think, yeah, maybe I won't sort of delve all down into the sort of all of the, let's just say that over the course of all of this filming, the long standing, and you're well aware of this, Joe, the long standing sort of tension within the single payer movement that has existed for years. It was nothing new for us, so we don't need to go back into that. But I was appreciative to be able to go and pack up our hand-painted U.S. flag and get a lift from Jason Call, who had run for Congress. Like, I just had all these different pieces throughout all of the time in my head of what is in my estimation the single payer Medicare for all movement, and a person that is running for office, but also on the board of Whole Washington and willing to go be in the process of a political campaign, running as a Democrat, but is also willing to go and protest outside of Representative Pelosi's residence.
Yeah, that
peaceful,
was rare. That
peaceful
was very
protest.
rare.
Yeah. I just, it was something about the energy and everybody's energy there. And Dr. Jarvis also traveled for that. So Eric had welcomed all of us the day before with a kind of tour of all of the wealth in that neighborhood and some of the historic, buildings and just to kind of reconnect and see all of these people who, we have known online for so long in our online organizing, but who this movie gave some of us the opportunity to meet in person for the first time and to go rally together through the marches for Medicare for All in DC. And there was footage, but I don't know if I'm still not really doing the thing, which is for you when you asked, like, how was it? So that protest, I found myself feeling that and allowing myself to really express the outrage that I think this movie started on the tails of the energy that was generated by the Force the Vote movement. And I don't say that as a let's re-engage in that debate or let's move into that territory again, except it does need to be said that the Medicare for All movement was searching for, how are we going to keep this in the national spotlight? How are we going to keep Medicare for All single payer in the national conversation? And Force the Vote was the lever that we were begging our progressive representatives to use to force that. So when that did not happen after it, and that's, by the way, that's what connected us to Justin Jackson. So that is all connected with the film, because that's how we were able to reach out directly to Justin Jackson and ask him, would you like to be interviewed for this film? Is because we were connected through the Force the Vote movement. And it was that sort of energy that was around for the marches that generated the marches for Medicare for All across the country, and also the kind of energy outside of Pelosi's office, these demands that we're organizing, and we're being ignored, and nobody's hearing us. And even our elected progressives are still not valuing and lifting up the voices of the grassroots and our demands. So that energy, I was able to let that out and vocalize that in San Francisco, which I really appreciated. And then in terms of the interview, there were 2 interviews, the one on the first weekend. And then it turned out that after the project got, as Kenny mentioned, so much bigger than what they had originally anticipated or envisioned. And then a lot of time had gone on, and just so many things had evolved that I think they thought, well, it's pretty common in documentaries to come around and loop back and reconnect and gather things up. And so everything where I'm being interviewed is in the last trip that Maddie and Kenny came up together. And I remember at that point I was feeling pretty deflated, honestly. I was feeling broken. I had quite significant back pain. I just felt that the movement, I couldn't handle very much more with the infighting and just the putting a lot of creative energy into this. I didn't know if I had a lot more hope to give, to offer, to find within myself. So I knew 2 things. One was, let me reach out to someone let's go to a different location than where we filmed before. So it was not actually at my home. It was at the home of Roxanne Thayer, who's on Vashon Island. And I just thought, Roxanne's got like incredible energy. She's gathered a lot of signatures for whole Washington over the years. Maybe it would be wonderful to just get on the ferry together and it would provide the right kind of energy. I knew I had to foster or make space available to find what I hoped was still in there within myself. And the other piece of that is that just prior to them traveling up here, Joe and I had a phone call, and Joe said, "You know what they still need from you, right, Laura?" And I said, "No, I'm not sure." and he said, "Hope." You need your hope, I think. I mean, maybe I'm paraphrasing, but it seems like. and you know,
to this story, Laura.
Yeah, please hop in. Yeah,
this is a special story to me. That final interview with you was the last thing we shot for the film. Just was the end of our journey. And one of the things we didn't have is an ending, and really very much an ending that fostered a sense of hope. And as you just described, you were actually, just the way things turned out, kind of in a state of not having a lot of that at that moment, right? And we went to this beautiful place and we set up a beautiful interview, and all of the typical questions that you've answered many times before went really, really well. And then we got to this point where I wanted to circle around to try to make a good ending, right? And I wanted you to give us a call to action, a cry for hope. Sukaru's here. Hello.
Hello.
I am so sorry. I totally thought it was the 30th.
Oh.
And not
Oh.
so I apologize. I'm here. But anyway, yeah.
Okay. Well, I was saying so I'm trying to queue up this question about what do we do next? Why should we have hope that we can do this? And it was a struggle. It was a real struggle to get that answer out of you. And at one point, Maddie and I switched. We're like, you know what? It's not working with me. So Maddie, come sit in. She'll ask the questions. And it was visually frustrating you, right? And then there was a point, and thank God our cameras were still running, where Laura just goes, I don't know what you guys want from me. This isn't easy, okay? Sometimes I don't have very much hope. Sometimes I think the country is suffering from a lack of faith and it's going to take something really big. And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. And it just happened. And this beauty and the tears started flowing. And we got left with maybe like the most powerful soundbite in the movie, which is the last like 10 seconds. So that was just a magical moment. And the movie, Laura and I have used that word magic a lot in the making of the film because it feels like, you know, whenever we've been faced with what's next, how are we going to do this? Can we actually access that person? Something almost seeming magical came around and gave us just what the movie needed. So
I remember that phone call, Laura. I remember it very well. And I think Maddie's hit it right. And she says, the integrity of a person is what shines through. When I finished having that conversation with you, I knew. I mean, I had always known you were the star of the movie. I knew that from the get-go. But I knew that you were going to make the statement out of your heart, out of the integrity of how you feel about this, that would move the movement forward. I knew that was going to happen.
You said before, Laura, that you're very much the emotion, and you always kind of you deprecate yourself for that. But the emotion that you carry with you and the emotion that you express has been the life of the Red Berets movement. I think we all see that. It brings the humanity into the picture, not just the anger, not just the protest, but it brings the human feeling to us all. And I think it's remarkable that you're able to lead a movement that doesn't have much structure. I mean, that's a social network with all the emergence that implies. I personally don't know how you keep everything together, and I know you have difficulty keeping everything together because I've seen that often. But you always do keep everything together, Laura. You always do. And now, thank you very much for coming, Sakura.
Again, I am so sorry. I totally blanked out, and I apologize.
Oh, that's quite all right. These things happen all the time. We're very happy that you're here.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Okay, I personally am very happy that you're here. The question I have for you is, when you participated in various aspects of the movie, what were the inner feelings like before you? What was the kind of experience that you had in being part of the movie?
That's a very good question, and I really appreciate you for asking a question because I feel that this movie, and this is no flattery to you, Kenny and Maddie, but I think I experienced a very, very affirming moment during during the making of this film when Kenny was interviewing me. And the reason why I say that is was because there was a moment because of the question that Kenny asked me, really like confirmed my faith and affirmed my identity as an immigrant in this country and why it's very important to me. And to be honest with you, so you know, I've been in this country for 33 years, ever since 1990, and but pretty much for the 30 years or more of my life here was spent kind of hiding out. I mean, how I describe it is like trying not to take up space, because that's how some of us, live our lives. Some of us as immigrants, because we feel like we should not take up too much room in this country because we are just, I don't know, we're just here from someone, somewhere else. But when Kenny asked me about and I don't remember exact word that you used, Kenny, but something about, for lack of better word, patriotism. What it means to be patriotic. So some people may assume that since I was born in a different country, in another country, and not here, and I'm an immigrant, I am not patriotic to this country, but that's not the case. I have my own version, if you will, of patriotism. And so when I was answering Kenny's question, it really confirmed and affirmed my faith in the in this country and in what this country represents. It may not be the reality of this country right now, but the ideals that this country was founded upon still, in my mind, still stands. And I think together, all of us together with various identities and with various backgrounds, we can still make it happen. And healthcare justice movement is a big part of that, because healthcare is a human right, and it's a very fundamental human right. And I do believe that as an activist, who has been involved in a very in a various issues, I think we need to get this out of our way, healthcare, because it's so fundamental. And once we achieve that, we can start talking about we can start achieving a lot of other things as well. So yeah.
Okay, I should note, I think, but for the audience, that Tsukuru is a truly amazing activist, not just an activist, okay, for Medicare for all, okay, but an activist for peace, okay, and an activist for LGBTQIA causes, and he is just someone who is always pushing for justice of one kind, okay, or another. So thank you, Tsukuru, for that. And
Thank you.
thank you very much for this, your contribution to this wonderful film. It was very important, okay, your contribution. It was very well done.
Thank you. It's been an honor. Thank you.
It added to the film. We spent about an hour and 14 minutes now talking about the film and how it was made and the inner feelings people had. I want to switch now to, really talking about the future. The Healing Us network that you're trying to build. Okay, and I'd like everybody to feel free to contribute your conceptions of what the Healing Us network should do and what it should be about.
Okay. To start off, I wanted to do something more than just have a normal website for a movie that was made, where this just stays a movie and that's it. I feel like there's a lot more potential there. Go bigger, do something more. Let the movie be just a start, just the beginning. So the idea behind the Healing Us Network is, let's have a place as a gathering place that has a very specific set of requirements for being a part of this group, part of this network. It's that you support single payer healthcare, no matter how that's defined. It could be the state, it could be at a federal level. There could be various ways in which you think it should be funded. But if you care about this movement in your own way and are willing to link arms with everyone else, if this is where we want you. It's a place where as many resources as possible all exist and live in the same place. We want someone who is very seasoned in the movement to be able to find use at this website. And we want beginners who have never heard of anything to be able to go there, click on their state, find out that there's something going on nearby and that they can get connected and start doing something. I hate a really, really good documentary that leaves you wanting to do something about it, but it doesn't give you anything to do.
Yes.
So we want it to serve as that, one. Two, I think I hinted at earlier that it's impossible for the film to say everything. You know, for example, I just had a very great conversation with the head of Black Lives Matter Sacramento. I shared the movie with her. Her name is Tanya. She's a brilliant activist. And I said, I want you to see this film. I want you to hear if your group would like to be a part of this network. And she liked the film a lot and had a lot of good things to say about it. But she also said, I think you missed a story about, getting more specific about the Black experience with healthcare in America. And I go, you're right. That's a really fair critique. I certainly had an eye to diversity and representation in the film, but in telling the very specifics of how many of the things we're describing affecting everyone in America today are actually magnified and substantially worse in the Black community. And so I said to her, Tanya, let's get that on the Healing Us Network. Let's shoot something. Let's write something. Let's get you involved. I want the Healing Us Network to be the place where any voice that isn't in the movie can be added to a growing body of voices, and until we can feel like it is all there. You know what I mean? Sukaru kind of ended up by default the representation for the queer and gender diverse community, right? And there's a whole lot more story there, right? And in fact, we had a pretty long conversation about healthcare and transgender people that could have become its own movie by itself. And so when that gets left on the cutting room floor, there's some certain necessities to that as a filmmaker and the things that restrict you as a filmmaker. But it's also a bit of a tragedy because that needs to be heard too. So Healing Us Network will be the place where we hope to build and collect all of that.
Would anybody like to add anything else to that? Very clear, good statement. Yes.
Yeah, if I may. Okay, thank you. So thank you, Kenny, for bringing that up. And so to me, that's actually the beauty of Healing Us being film for activation, if you will. So my background, like a little bit about me actually. So previously, like when I started out doing activism for anti-nuclear activist community, my medium of choice was documentary films. So I basically found like a bunch of documentary films mainly from Japan and tried to screen it in the greater LA area. And that's how I started out. And the reason why I did that was because people are made of emotions, and driving force, like really what drives people among other things is emotion. And when people see stories, human stories, that's really what drives people to act. So anyway, so that was like my background. Having said that, so especially starting with like the latter part of last year, 2022, when the attacks on transgender rights started to intensify, I kind of had this thought, kind of like a dread almost, that what I said in the film maybe did not do justice to the transgender community and what we are facing, because it was filmed in a certain time. And my the development of my awareness about awareness about being a transgender person, and my knowledge of the community actually increased since the time of the filming. So I did have regrets and sort of like this dread in me, and also not only as a transgender person but a member of the AAPI community. Again, I'm just one person, and I don't certainly represent like the whole of AAPI community. And AAPI community is a huge community with the diverse populations too. So that's why, though, having screening this film really gives the opportunity for us to start conversations.
Yeah.
And I think what I see is like that's the beauty of this film, and that's the huge opportunity that this film represents. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sakura. Were there any other additions to that very fine statement by Kenny?
Yeah, it occurred to me as I watched several red states, I think it's up to number 8, over the objections of their legislature, pass Medicaid expansion ballot initiatives. The most recent, I think, was North Dakota, but it's also true in Utah. It happened here as well. Mostly this happens because stories get told. The TV ad approach for the North Dakota proponents for expanding Medicaid was to put people up who told their story about how the lack of financing for healthcare affected them or their family members, their loved ones, and that made the difference. This harkens back to what I said originally, which was I've been looking for a movie for a long time about single payer movement because I think the stories are so important. Well, the network is going to be a home for those stories. We in Utah, with our Common Sense Healthcare for Utah organization, trying to build a movement to transform how we do healthcare business, we are also looking to be a home for stories. We want to connect with the Healing Us Network in part so that we can share those stories back and forth. That is where the power is, the staying power of this movement. We will win when it is the case that no matter who you are, you've heard the stories. Mm-hmm. That's when we'll overcome the very powerful, the very well-financed opposition to what we're proposing. The stories will make it happen. And that's what Healing Us Network offers us, is a repository for that wealth of experience that people will resonate with.
Then the last thing I'll add is that there's a very real decline in influence that a documentary tends to have over time. This is just a fact. Things become dated, the world changes, sure. Documentary stays the same. And so the amount of impact it has, some can last forever and some fizzle out really quick, but a certain amount of its impact will wane as time goes by. And so the other reason we want a living network that is changing and being added to all the time is because the healthcare story is going to change. And there might even be new obstacles and new challenges, ahead of us that aren't addressed in the film that we can address there.
Yes, I agree that there's a half-life to the impact, of a film, over time. Have you anything to add, Maddie?
I do. I am just thinking one of the things to I'm on an integrity kick, I guess.
That's fine. That's an important kick.
Well, I personally have been feeling a huge lack of integrity in our political sphere, especially when it comes to information. And I feel like there's a huge lack of transparency when it comes to information, where the information's coming from, who's funding it, really. So I found myself often at odds with my dad. He's who I talk about mostly when I say we. I love people with different opinions than me. um, and something that I'm excited about with the Healing Us Network, as one of the filmmakers behind it, we're filmmakers and we're not healthcare experts. We're only healthcare experts in our own personal experiences with the healthcare system. And hopefully, as we stay transparent about that, as we are filmmakers with a passion for healthcare, that people can hopefully find trust in that and join our network with that as an underlying basis of this was made by filmmakers and their team with a passion for healthcare. They are not funded by Kaiser. The information coming out of this network is at least credible on a personal level. These are people who are trying to be as transparent as possible. These are people who have integrity and health at the center of their movement. And the whole idea of this network is grounded on a documentary that will not change. Once it's published, we're done. We can't edit it anymore. And as it stands, that's partially why when you credit a film, you include the year that it was released then. That's partially why you do that, so that people can know, oh, that's this film that came out at this time.
Yes.
People with this perspective. And as we build on that, hopefully it is building into a big tree based out of trust and integrity. And that's what my little soapbox, why I'm excited to be a part of a network. As a filmmaker, it's creative marketing. Yes, I want to be transparent about that. I want people to see my movie. I'm a movie maker. That's awesome that we get something that helps get my film out there.
Well, we have one more sort of selfish objective.
Sure.
I want healthcare.
Right. Yeah, I'll be totally honest about that. I would love to go to the doctor without paying, worrying about a bill. Like that's 100% honest. I'm not lying about that.
Yeah.
So that's my little piece. Is I'm anticipating people, and I think about Joe in Utah. I'm anticipating an anti-campaign, and I'm anticipating an anti-Healing Us campaign, and I trust us to stay strong against that campaign and to stick to our guns. Well, that's not bad. To stick to our original ideals and motives. Like, yes, we want healthcare. Yes, you can follow the trail of money to how this film and then how this network and how this movement is starting again. I think that's cool. Exciting, is that it's built on trust and integrity and transparency.
Okay, Laura, what is your conception of the Healing Us Network?
Yeah, I just community. Sharif, who was the connector of all of us, the film to the marches for Medicare for All and to Sukuru, community was a big word that he used a lot. And that, despite the fact that there was stress and there's always stress with organizing and all of that stuff, what really comes to my mind with all of these actions, and like the recent action that wasn't in the movie, but that, we traveled for Scott Denoyer's event and got to see each other again. We can't always travel. The country is a big place and we have limited resources, but the movie brought us all together. And so through the Healing Us Network, more of that, because maybe some of the things that people see in the film are outraged, angry activists, people demanding healthcare. The anger is warranted. It's well warranted. We don't need to go into that. Everybody understands that. But also, you can see it in the film too, is that sense of connection and community. And we get that together, and we need more of that. And so I am really looking forward to these in-person showings and hoping that all the organizations for healthcare, all the organizations that are working on many issues but who support single payer, all the individuals, all the independent media, labor unions, everybody can come get involved, because the community that you actually experience, like in your heart, Easter Sunday was for me, was such a heart. I felt so full in my heart. And I had that as well in the actions, the candlelight vigil and all of these actions that are seen in the film. It takes a lot to put those together, but the reward of coming together as human beings and community is just so worth it. And so if we can foment and include and invite and foster even more of that, and build that groundswell that's mentioned in the movie, and maybe find some more knitters and crocheters, so that finally we can just do some open, let's just knit and crochet and do our art in public places. I'm looking forward to more people, more artistic people finding out that there's all kinds of ways to get involved. So super thankful for Healing Us, and looking forward to Healing Us Network. And May 19th is the premiere. So yay.
Okay, I still have a few more questions, which relate to where the Healing Us Network will fit into the movement. For example, what is the relationship of the Healing Us Network to the Red Berets?
Yeah. Do you want to answer that, Laura? You want me to answer that?
You're pretty succinct. Why don't you give it a go?
So the Red Berets is an official partner to the Healing Us Network, as are now
Dozens.
Yeah, probably dozens of others of organizations. So they're one of many that are represented there. And basically what that means, if you're a partner, you're someone who's seen the movie and agrees with its message and consents to be to share a common space with other organizations. Okay. So we want partners to be visible on the website so that they can be found by the people who need resources and want to get involved. I see someone showing up to the website, and maybe that person happens to be inclined to the whole craftivist idea, and they discover the Red Berets, and that becomes their channel to get involved. But they also might show up and maybe they're a healthcare provider, and they find one of our other partners like Physicians for National Health Plan and go, oh, I didn't know this existed. I should be a part of this too, So that's the official connection between Healing Us Network and Red Berets. They're a partner. They just happen to be one of our favorite partners.
I think that's very well put, Kenny. There still seems to me to be a question about that, though, and I suppose the question about that comes from the Red Berets movement supports and originates certain kind of activities that are in support of the overall movement for Medicare for all. Okay, will the Red Berets continue to operate on an independent basis, doing these same things? Okay, or will the Red Berets become such an integral part of the Healing Us Network that there's kind of a melding that takes place?
I suppose a lot of that just remains to be seen, but the Red Berets are independent from the Healing Us Network, so how they decide to kind of direct their action. But what I love about the Red Berets most of all is that it kind of fits onto any other part. Fits on is a funny term because it's a hat, but onto any other part of the movement, right? Because honestly, what they're crocheting for is for solidarity, right? There's no place in the movement I can see where the Red Berets don't belong. So how exactly that pans out, technically, it'll really be up to Laura and her team.
I have a creative way of talking about this.
Mhm.
I think Laura and the Red Berets have really informed the filmmaking process, which has also informed the creation of this idea of the Healing Us Network. And I love the visual metaphor of a beret as something that is sewn together, a bunch of threads crafted and knitted and sewn and crocheted together to create this whole piece. So that, in terms of an analogy, is very similar to what we're trying to do with the network. We're separate things.
Yeah,
and we're all the same.
And the Red Berets, regardless, they're going to be a part of the soul of the movie, a part of the soul of the Healing Us Network, just because the hat fits.
Okay.
Well,
I'm very interested to hear you say that, of course, because as you see, okay, I am a Red Beret.
Yeah.
So I want to know where I fit.
Sure.
well, sorry, Kenny, go ahead.
No, it's your turn.
Well, as we go on and more people see the film, I do agree that it's gonna, Sukuru could end up deciding to do something very structured with Cal Red Berets. We may decide, Scott, Sukuru, myself, you, Joe, anyone else who has been very interconnected and involved, we may decide, okay, what kind of structure do we need to create? Because this is, the beautiful thing is this is so grassroots and it's everywhere now, but we do need a little bit more of a structure. We will have to cross that bridge when they come to it. I do want to say berets actually have in themselves a lot of structure. Everyone who crochets or knits one, the structure is in the beret, and we are, as Lisa's quote that I like to put out there a lot, let's craft the fabric of our future. We have already all of these stitches for single payer are, as I see it, every stitch is a person, every stitch is an organization, every stitch is its own particular strategy. And some people may think, well, the Red Berets aren't for me. They don't have to be, but we are knitting and crocheting for the 99%. That's been what we've been doing. And the thing is, I always wanted the idea to be independent and free. And that can be tricky because grassroots can be really messy. And then how do you control that? Well, maybe we don't, but now we do have at least the vehicle of the movie. It's pretty well established that if you're crafting a beret for Medicare for all, and the movie is going to help convey very clearly, oh, those people are they're not for access. They're not for, Medicare for all who want it, or Medicare Advantage. These people are for getting the profit motive out of healthcare and getting healthcare for everyone in this country, and therefore solidarity and coming together. So I just had never really wanted to form sort of a board and have it be really potentially co-opted. I want artists and crafters to be able to come in and put their own creative stamp on things, and the beauty that we have seen in everybody's individual work, and how Sukuru is crafting all these amazing hats that are in representation of the trans community. It's like we grow and we foment action. And I think that grassrootsiness is beautiful and brilliant. And what I'm probably going to do through the Healing Us network whenever I'm able to be present and suggest others do is, if you're a crafter or an artist of any kind and want to contribute through the Red Berets, look at the Healing Us Network website. You see our partners. Look at you just found what's happening in your state. Go reach out to Common Sense Utah and ask them, like, we'd love to crochet and knit for your cause. We're here in Utah. Great. They're plugged in then. They can go and contribute their work and be in touch with those local organizations that are already doing the work. That's the beauty for me, because I'm also just a knitter. I kind of am in my space when I can just be knitting. And the irony is it took all of this time and all of these actions and all of these efforts to finally have a creative vehicle where we could truly get the word out on such a scale where we might be able to tell the crafters, hey, this is happening. And now it can just hopefully take flight. Sakura, did you have anything else to add on the Red Berets front? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, thank you. I think everything needed to be said has been said, but if I can just add, like, kind of, comment, is, I think again, the beauty of Red Berets, as Laura has nurtured it over the years, it's in its, like, kind of in organization. We are a very organized group. We are very fluid and organic, and I think, but that's our strength, I feel like, and it is true. I guess there comes a certain point that we have to be more organized. However, having said that, like, okay, so let's look at the movement, like, what happened in Hong Kong at the height of the protest against the China. So, it was totally organic, and the strength of that movement was, two things. One, like, there was no leader to be pointed out, because if there was, like, this known leader, they can just kind of, for lack of better word, sorry about the expression that I'm going to say right now, but if you if you eliminate the leader, the movement dies. But if there is no leader to pinpoint, that means the longevity of the movement, actually. And also, like, the protesting in Hong Kong was, like, totally organic. They had a means to kind of, like, launch a protest, like, at the last moment's notice, and people show up. So again, like, there was, like, no, like, known structure or organization behind it. I mean, I'm sure, like, there was, like, some kind of system behind it, but there was no, like, hierarchical organization. So I think that's the strength of Red Beret, and I just really credit Laura for having it that way, because that gave us, I guess, chapters, flexibility and creativity to do our own things. So yeah.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Sakura. I will add something short to that by saying that I've loved the bottom up character of the Red Berets movement. And I do think that is the essential characteristic of it, and that it grows, okay, in a very organic way. It weaves, okay, a web, and that web is slowly spreading across the whole country. But because it's a web, because of the self-organizing, because it's a bottom-up type of movement, it never ossifies. It just stays dynamic, okay, and vital. And just as it contributed to healing us, and now to the network that Healing Us, okay, is going to set up, it's also going to spawn other networks, okay, and other movements, okay, because its character is so emergent. I don't know how much you've read or been exposed to the complex adaptive systems type of literature, but to me, the Red Berets is a complex adaptive system. And that's why it continues to live and continues to grow. I think we've gone into depth, about quite a few things. If it's okay with you, and I realize we're nearing the time, when we should be ending, can we spend a few minutes on some of the comments?
Sure.
Because we have got some comments from people. Let me let in Sukuru again. Okay. Okay,
Sorry.
Sukuru, we are going to go over some of the comments for just a few minutes because we have quite a few.
Joe, can I make a quick request that amongst the comments somewhere I'm such a control freak. Can we make sure to just re-announce? Of course, everybody can look online and they can go to the website and see that it's premiering on May 19th, and we'd love help amplifying. And they can go to the website. So that's really enough. Coming to you soon. All right. Probably all that really needs to be said.
Do we have the website in the comments? Because if we don't have the website in the comments, then we should get the website into the comments. Okay, and also the announcement, of May 19th. The way to get things into the comments is, if you want to put things into the private chat, then I can transfer those things from the private chat, to the comments.
Well, some of the questions or comments might be about how to see the movie.
There you go.
Let's see.
You're right. I entirely agree. So let's go through these and pick up on that. Okay, so Terry Cook comments, hi folks, we can put Robert Kennedy in the Oval Office in the Independent Party. Time to lose a two-party system. Yeah, that's okay, but I think that's really a distraction from what we're talking about here today, and I don't want to distract. As much as I feel a certain enthusiasm for Robert Kennedy at this point, but as you say, it is time to lose the two-party system. So. Terry Cook also says all positive actions begin as the power of intention, followed with repeating or repetition. We are becoming so united in our visions of what is right and what is wrong and what we must do. Go total green. Oh, okay. And Pepper Oceana Lewis says, preach. I don't know who is preaching, but I'm sure that comment is very well taken.
Yes.
We have a comment also from Terry Cook. You people are searchers, researchers, and teachers, which makes you fighters against tyranny. We salute you. Okay, I take it the we here is the Green Party, Terry Cook. Is that right? Pepper Oceana Lewis says, maybe invite people to put their Twitter handle in the comments section if they want to be added to the Healing Us Twitter group. Okay, Pepper, thank you for that. And consider Pepper's comment to be an invitation to put your Twitter handle in the comment section. And Lana Dell says, so glad to be able to say I know these folks. And Terry Cook says, most people's attention span lasts maybe 2 minutes. Yeah, perhaps. I'm going to skip some of the comments, so we do get time to talk about the really substantive ones. Terry Cook says, read these 3 books. The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Herer. Edwin Black's Internal Combustion and Jeremy Rifkin's The Hydrogen Economy, all 30 years old. I read them 3 times. Terry says we have 1 million medical doctors, 500 honest, and 50 with the courage to come with the truth. Thanks to Maddie Purvis.
Loved whoever that stranger is.
And Terry Cook says, Terry Cook's been very active in these comments. I am proud of the 48,500 Marines that said no to the vaccine. The mandate for jabs are over for the military. And Fran, Sylvia's daughter, says, oh my God, you guys, and leaves us 3 hearts.
Yeah, we love Fran.
And we would like to leave 30 hearts for Fran in
Yes.
return. Now, by the way, I was having a hard time deciding here whether to wear a beret by Laura or Fran, okay, or Michelle for this stream. Fran says, been making graphics all day, laugh out loud. Didn't know you were on. Love you, Scott. Love you all. Thank you, Dolores, for letting me know. Yeah, Dolores, of course, is D for peace. And Robert Copeland says, hi, everybody. Fran says, my people, leaves 3 hearts. Hi, Robert and Lana, Pepper, and Kay. Yes, they're all my people, too. Fran says, I see you knitting for the health care we deserve, Laura. And she leaves a heart and says, you're knitting for M4A. And she leaves another heart. Robert says, Dr. Jarvis, be prepared for a huge fight as the big pharma and healthcare insurance companies will spend big money to keep the current system intact.
He's ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Dr. Jarvis is ready. They were disconnected. Yes, for sure. Laura, the producer, says Fran, and Fran greets Sukuru with a heart. And Fran says, lots of magical moments. Yes, there were lots of magical moments in the film. Lana says, did anyone mention about Lisa Theobald? Yes, I think Lisa Theobald was mentioned 4 different times during the stream. And I'm only sorry she wasn't able to make it today. I did send her a link just in case and hoped that she would co-host this for us. And Fran says, yes, Joe, it brings the love and passion. Robert points out that Laura mentioned Lisa a little while ago. Robert did this at 5:10, was it, Pacific time? And Ghost Start has joined. My dad once advised me to be boring. Boring is good. I'm not sure that's true these days. Ghost Start says, my healthcare in America story is a 25-year-old nightmare. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Steve Ghost Start. Very sorry. Sacramento City Council passed a resolution to support M4A and CalCare back at the end of November of 2021. And Steve says, or Robert says, I see we have 3 people from California here now. Yes, 3 people from California. That's right. And Steve Wolfbrand says, can you share a link to Sukuru's group? Well, I have something in the private chat. healinusnetwork.com. That's what Laura put in. If Sukuru puts something in the private chat, I will transfer that to the comments. Since
Yeah, the thing is, sorry. I'm sorry to say, I should actually make a group page, I guess, on Facebook or something, but we don't have a website or Facebook page. So, Steve, the best way to find out about what's going on is to, I think, if we are mutuals on Twitter, that's probably the best way. But yeah, but you're right. I need to make a Facebook page or something so that people can find out and reach out more easily. So thank you for that.
and thank you, Steve, for the suggestion. Okay.
There was a question that Lana Dell had asked on Twitter, if I can jump in quickly, that as a about whether we or people in the Healing Us Boost group know about Medicare for All Everywhere's actions to get people to come in and organize marches. And I just finding myself with all the crafting for the upcoming premiere, almost too busy to reply to everything. And this is a good opportunity to say, here's where we connect the Healing Us network and in action and say, yes, I was at one of their recent meetings. Kenny has reached out. Medicare for All Everywhere, or M4A Everywhere, are official Healing Us partners. And so absolutely, we hope everybody visits the website, gets connected to M4A Everywhere, and gets in and helps start organizing rallies and marches. That is one of the points of the Healing Us Network, is that it's a place where we can just direct people and say, absolutely, if you can start organizing those marches, or people who want to get involved, go help our partners over here out. That's going to be fantastic. So I just wanted to address that, even though it wasn't in the comments here. I know Lana Dell is always really supportive of this show and helping put our message out there. So I wanted to address her question kind of directly on this stream. And also, we love you, Fran, and Pepper, all of you. Thank you for your support.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura. I think we're down to a final word here. Fran says, thank you, Joe, for this amazing panel. Well, I think thanks are more due to Laura for this amazing panel than Joe. But thank you anyway, Fran. I think we're down to final words. So does anyone on the panel have anything to add at this point?
I'll just add what's happening now, what's happening next, if that's all right.
Please.
So the big news is that we're premiering the movie. Our world premiere is going to take place in Tacoma, the birthplace of the Red Berets. We're going to lay out the Red Beret carpet and premiere the movie there on May 19th. On the same day, we'll be releasing the film to the general public online. It'll be on multiple streaming services. Where we want people to see it virtually, see it online, is actually straight through the Healing Us Network. We'll have it available there for rent and purchase digitally. We'll also have DVDs and Blu-rays available to purchase. The benefit of watching it through the Healing Us Network website versus, say, like on Amazon is we don't have to send half of our revenues to Jeff Bezos. So find us on our website. And if we're going to be rolling out screenings all over the country, we have them lining up in the western part of the United States first, but we will be doing them all over the country before this summer is over. And so if you want to stay on top of that, the best thing you can do is go to Healing Us Network and add your email address, as well as follow us on our various social media platforms.
Okay, thank you very much, Kenny. That was essential information that we certainly needed to have. Okay, I would like to add one comment. First of all, of course, I want to thank you all for coming. I think this panel was really wonderful, at least for me, okay, as the host. I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good.
And I hope that you did too.
Yeah.
But I also want to point out the connection between empowering democracy and Healing Us, okay, and the Healing Us Network. I think the connection is really fairly obvious. If we don't have Medicare for all, if we don't have the kinds of movements that the Red Berets and the Healing Us Network, okay, are instantiating right now, then we will never have democracy again, okay, in the United States. We are under threat. One of the hopeful things I think is happening is the invigoration of the Medicare for All movement that these networks are going to represent. And that's the connection to this show, but to empowering democracy. Okay, I want to add, okay, I won't have a Dump the Corruption show tonight. I will be going to Dee's show, okay, at 8 p.m. to help her out. I will be back tomorrow with the Empowering Democracy show on the impact of the end, okay, of neoliberalism in the United States, if we really are at the end. And I'll also be back on Friday at 9 o'clock with the Dump the Corruption show. So I hope you'll all be there for these things. And so now I'd like to say just thank you, okay, and good evening to everybody.
Thank you so much, Joe. And
Great.
thanks to all of you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for everyone who joined us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Okay.